Welcome to another episode of the Jay and Rob Toy Show, as promised, as advertised, back and in the virtual digital interweb flesh. You get myself, and of course, not just me, you get the Sylvester to my Tweety Bird, Mr. Jay Bartlett.
Good evening. How are you, sir?
Well, it's been a pretty good week around here, Jay. It's wintertime, but it isn't sub Arctic temperatures, although it's calling for that tomorrow. So it's been pretty digestible. Busy as always. What about yourself?
What's up, Lisa, my darling? Wow, Monday wasn't so fun. I don't know if you were out in that. That was not digestible by any means. That was hell.
Oh,
Getting up and
the 2 feet of snow we got. No, I was inside by my warm fireplace. Did a little bit of shoveling, but was not outside. Did you have to fare the blizzard tundra of Hoth?
I did. Yep.
How was that?
Not so good. Not so
No?
good. No, I can see why, as you get older, people move to Florida when they retire. I can definitely see that. What's up, Scott? But yeah, I'm not a fan of this stuff, man.
Well, let me remind you, Jay, that for 10 years of my life, I lived down there, even though I'm from here, but I was there and now I'm back here. So I want you to put yourself in the mindset of living in the desert-like climate for 10 years, like Las Vegas, being free from this winter curse, and then having to move back to it. It's almost worse than never experiencing it in the first place. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, well, I don't believe you, so I would take 1 year off. If I got to not experience it for a year, I would be a happy camper. So,
well, you too can get on a plane or drive across the border and get to the south in America and just live in the desert.
Get to Vegas. Vegas, baby.
The Cruz come get you. Cactus Jamie saying, hey. Severus Snape saying, ouch. And Silver Knight Kyle says, greetings, Jen. Thank you, of course, for joining us on our reoccurring weekly live stream every Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the YouTube. I want to get to this week's icebreaker, of course, brought to you by Mockmasters Retro Regs, Big Bad Toy Store, and maybe the coolest physical comic book, sports card, and action figure emporium on the planet. Heroes Comics, baby. Our HQ. Jay, this week's icebreaker. I want to hear one thing you'd like to eliminate from the whole world of toy collecting.
One thing I want to eliminate from the world of toy collecting. It's probably the one thing I'd like to eliminate from the planet altogether, and that is
People?
just remakes and reissues. I'm not immune to this. I've fallen for it quite a few times. But with movies, music, toys, I would like to see, and video games, of course, I would like to see that eliminated, so you have no choice but to create new content, or at the very least continue with existing IPs with new stories and new characters and stuff like that.
Very interesting that you say that, Jen. You'll find out soon when we get to our game show portion of the show. I think it would be nice to eliminate retail store exclusives.
Jamie's sharing your sentiment too. I believe that's along the same lines. I agree too, Jamie. The scalpers, yeah, man.
Yeah,
100%.
Cactus Jamie wants to eliminate scalpers. I think scalpers are fine because there's always going to be supply issues, but it's this constant pain, this push and pull when you get into a line, and then something's in Target, and it pretty much is Target at this point. I think maybe Walmart, but pretty much Target, where us in Canada can't get it, and the stuff that we get in Canada is always like 6 months delayed from everything else. So if we could just not change the entire distribution chain system, but just the retail exclusives, or at least have a Canadian counterpart that can counteract something that's only released in the US. I think that would be a good, reasonable step forward.
To defend
don't want to hear
that a little bit, EB Games is pretty good. They usually get the Walgreens and a lot of the Target stuff. So at least there's some hope for it. Plus, you can always pre-order from them. So I feel like they're pretty good. Other than that, though, I don't think a lot of people know that, and it's not
They
very
don't.
heavily.
I don't.
It's not very heavily advertised. EB doesn't advertise it well, so just so everyone knows out there, you can do that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm with you. Exclusives in general, I'm done chasing that. Um, it's it's not fun. The GI Joe Classified line last year is what really burnt me out.
Right.
Our buddy GI Joe John hooked me up with Firefly and Major Blood, but if it had been for him, I want to say I wouldn't have cared, but I wasn't hunting for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's just I'm
Yep.
done chasing that stuff. So
Yeah, it's tough because it really sours the love that you get for the line, and then do you want to spend 2 or 3 times the amount for that retail exclusive, taking away from the other figures that you get, that you could get, you know? So it's got to be a pretty
I
special figure, and half the time they're not.
yeah, I agree. And I'm not into collecting toys or video games or music or anything that I collect to get financial gain. I've always said, you've always said, this stuff will be with us forever, right? It's really fun to follow and see stuff go up in value and know, hey, I got, whatever issue number 1. That's really cool. And
Sure.
it's worth so much. But I really see a lot of the modern stuff not having a whole lot of value. There's some stuff that holds its value, but a lot of it is just bin worthy, as I call it. So
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I think obviously a lot of the retro vintage stuff skyrockets, especially with the new release, the new iterations that come out. But I feel like the current contemporary offerings, it maybe does like a 2x or a 3x, and that's kind of it. That's the ceiling. So if it comes out for $25, you might get a figure that goes for 75, like the Cara Dune figure from what, 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago when they pulled her. She's not going that much higher. Ahsoka from the vintage collection we talked about is 10 years old, and that's a bit higher. And that was released as a San Diego exclusive and then trickled out later. But a lot of the stuff that's rare or hard to find now doesn't go much higher than 2 or 3 times the original retail asking price, unless it's an exclusive from a Comic-Con or some sort of convention. But compared to the vintage stuff, I think you're right. I don't think the value is there for this stuff. It's just the supply and demand driving that price.
it is, and everybody always wants the newest wave of whatever they're
Yeah.
collecting, right? And that's when I find, like, if you go in, like I give the example of Firefly and Major Blood. If you go and look at those now, you can get them for pretty reasonable. So it's just, not to date this episode, but we're almost among the wave with Storm Shadow and Spirit and Crocmaster, which all 3 of those I'm just dying for. And those are going to be, as soon as they come out, they're going to be like super expensive. And I would urge all of us, including myself, and it's myself I have to talk to the most, just to calm down. You don't have to have it first. Just relax. It's going to come,
Yeah.
Um,
But all of those are available for pre-order on Big Bad Toy Store as well. Now in Canada,
sure.
there's an exchange and there's shipping, but you're not going to be paying what you would on eBay either. You can wait and you can try to get it from Canadian retailers. It's going to be harder though, because it will be the dash to get them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really taken the fun out. And I've really examined finances over the last year as well. And the money that I put into new stuff, like I said, we talked about kind of like why we started this bet was to kind of scale down the spending altogether. But ultimately for me, it was a lot of the new stuff. It's like, if I'm going to spend X number of dollars a month budget wise for toys, I'd really like to put it towards something vintage. And I've kind of a plan for the new year. We'll see how that's going to roll out, but maybe we'll get into that later.
Sure. Well, we can talk about it whenever. And it's funny, since we started the bet, I have yet to buy a new figure. There's been a couple pre-orders, but as you know, you get the pre-order fever, you get excited, you get it in there, you lock it in place, and then maybe you're not loving it a week or 2 later. So you cancel it, and then maybe you add it back, but then you cancel it, and then you're somehow okay with it.
That's me currently with the Super 7 Silverhawks. Where I'm on the fence about canceling them. And I say that because I have Bluegrass and I have Quicksilver of the vintage line, and that's it.
Mm.
So it's kind of like, I mean, I've seen the show. I've definitely never seen every episode, but I'm familiar with the show and most of the characters. So that being said, I don't even have the vintage ones. So why
Right.
am I going to get the Super 7 Ultimate ones? So
Well,
that's the
because
kind
they're
of
there,
things
they're
that I
easier to get, they're complete, they're
because
more
they're there. Yeah, they're
well, they are right
$60
there.
a figure.
It's true, but they're there.
Yeah.
You know you're going to spend that same amount to get the vintage ones, but these are larger scale, they're better
Yeah.
articulated, they're easier to pose and display. So there's a lot of reasons when you compare when you don't have a lot in the original line. Do you want something made for the adult collector or something that's going to flake off and dust because it is vac metal over time, plus the hunt, plus the markup of trying to find those figures?
Yeah. Again,
So
if once they're in front of me, if you ever see something like that in a store, which it's pretty rare unless you're at a comic book shop or a specialty shop, it might be a different story. But it's one that I'm just like, do I really need to get into that? You know, why don't I get a few more of the vintage ones first? Obviously, I don't have a huge passion for Silver Hawks, or I would have a lot more of them.
I think it's a good question. Maybe dabble more vintage before you go recent reissue. I mean, the nice thing about Silverhawks, I don't know enough about it, but I don't think it's as vast as say a Star Wars or a TMNT or Marvel or DC.
No.
So I think it's probably going to end with what 16 figures tops. So you can do the math in your head and probably get the complete set for something fairly reasonable compared to like how long is Super 7 going to go with their turtles based on the Playmates line. That could go for 10 years without stopping if they're basing it on the original figure. So that's a bit of a wormhole, especially if you got that completist mentality. It's a bit tougher.
And I'm glad I don't. Like I've said, a few of my goals last year were to complete some lines I set out to do, which was fun to do. But at the same time, I've really divorced myself from feeling that I need to collect every single figure in the line. You go crazy doing that, and I think puts, at least for a collector like myself, it puts unnecessary pressure on me and it stresses me out. And that's what are you doing, man? You know what I mean? Like I say
Yeah.
that to myself a lot. It's like we're talking about something that's supposed to take you out of your every day-to-day
It's supposed to be
woes,
an
and
escape, not a
you're supposed to have
stressor.
fun. Yeah, it's not supposed to
Yeah.
stress you out. So if you're like, oh my god, I have 9 of the 10 figures, where am I going to find the 10th one? I can't find them. It's just forget it, let it go.
Now you and I, we don't specifically collect 2 or 3 lines like a lot of collectors do. We like a ton of different lines. But I can tell you the satisfaction that I would get from having to complete a line and say, oh, I got them all. Finally, I got them all, is nowhere near as the satisfaction I would get from, choosing my choice figures from all the different lines that we love. Like if I have to complete the original Playmates Turtles, or I get to have a little bit of everything else on the action figure buffet, I'm going to take a little bit of everything else to kind of have that full on representation and live with the fact that I don't need that other stuff.
I agree. And the figures that are sitting on my table this week are for our main topic, but that's another reason they're there as well. It matches up with what we're saying. Is I love Kenner superpowers, and so do you. But it's not a line I ever see finishing, because especially a lot of the later stuff, I don't identify with those obscure characters, and I don't feel the need to get them. I like the Batman,
Yeah.
Robin, the Joker, Superman, and but I don't feel the need, even though it's such a fantastic line. I don't feel the need to finish it. I don't need to do that.
Superpowers is an interesting one because, as we'll get to our main topic that you alluded to, and that of course is toys that still hold up today, and we'll go through a bunch of different toys and weigh the pros and cons of if they hold up, if they don't, why are some of them on the fence maybe. But Superpowers is one that I would go for a complete collection, just because those characters are so iconic, the figures are so good, and it's not that deep of a line. And I would be fine not completing it for 25 years. I would be okay not getting a Cyborg or a Plastic Man. Like, I don't need to go out and complete it as some sort of like compulsive or obsessive mission. But I could see myself over time, if I found the right prices and the right pieces in the right condition, pick them up, put them on the shelf, get a dolly
Yeah.
up there, feel better. get that completest checkmark box, wear that badge of honor. You know?
I find too with the Kenner superpowers specifically, for the most part, I always see the first and second waves. I rarely see the later stuff.
Yeah.
So it's usually always the same. Like it's even rare if I see like Darkseid or
Dr. Fate.
Dr. Fate or Desaad or Calavac. Any of those guys I don't see a whole lot of. I always see Batman, Superman, Robin, and Wonder Woman, that
Flash,
kind of thing.
Aquaman, Hawkman. Yeah.
Yeah.
All those ones.
Before never we get to with any weapons.
Never. And Hawkman usually only has one wing for some reason. Before we get to the main topic, let's return to the game show stage, my friend. If you're willing to play another round of what would bother you more, this is almost the anchor, the segment that I look forward to most every week now. So if you're up for playing, what would bother you more? We can play around. All right, here we go. So what would bother you more? Everybody out there, feel free to participate in the chat. And again, if you're listening to this on the audio or catching the replay on YouTube, try to join us 8:30 p.m. every Wednesday so we can get your feedback and tell you that you're wrong, like I tell Jay that he's wrong. All right, what would bother you more, Jay? Having to collect figures without accessories or only having to collect figures with severely damaged packages?
Well, being that G.I. Joe is one of my favorite lines to collect, I've set a goal for myself. Now, that is a line, the 82 to 94. That is a line that I want to get every single figure in, and I'm pretty close. And for me not to have all the accessories for all of those figures doesn't bother me. A lot of my superpowers, like we just said, I don't have Aquaman's trident. I don't have Hawkman's mace. It doesn't bother me. I like the figure. The accessories are always a bonus, and they make the figure better, yes. But I would say none of those are really that bad because even some of my carded examples aren't in the greatest shape. And I think just having a piece of that art is more important than it being mint. Like how many people have Amazing Fantasy 15 that's a 10 grade, like nobody.
Sure.
Right? It's just having that. And as this stuff gets older, it's more important to preserve it. So I guess out of the two, I would pick the packaging.
Right.
That would bother me more than not having the accessories.
Sure. That's fair. I think it would bother me more too, just to have something that looked crappier on the wall or displayed, and only to be able to have figures in crappy packaging would be pretty weak. Right. The next one, waiting twice as long for pre-orders or having to pay twice as much for figures.
Oh, having to pay twice as much. Yeah. Anyone who's been in this collecting field toy-wise the last 5 years knows, especially with, the world the way it is with everything happening, stuff gets pushed back all the time. Stuff gets delayed. I've had stuff on pre-order, a Big Bad Toy Store that I don't know will ever come in. So I'm more than happy waiting. I mean, the Thundercats Ultimates is a great example of what a mess. I don't know what's happened. We got the first wave in 2020, and that's it. And then last year, we got wave 3, but it was missing one figure. Yeah. And we still haven't got wave 2 yet. And again, I'm not crapping on anybody because it's difficult out there for anyone working wise. So I would say I would be more than happy to wait for pre-orders.
Right. I don't know. I go back and forth on this one all the time. If I could pay twice as much to get the figure now instead of waiting for 2 years, versus having to wait 4 years, because even now with pre-orders, man, I get them. I'm like, why did I want this for the money that I put down?
So for me, the only reason that doesn't bother me, and I think you will agree, is because you and I collect so many different lines. It's not like if you just collected G.I. Joe Classified and that was it, and you had to wait forever for a new dolly, sure. But I think there's more than enough lines that you and I collect that it's not that big of a deal. At least for me, it's not.
I think that's one of the reasons I collect so many lines, so that it doesn't
exactly get bored waiting.
Become a big deal. That's the key to getting around the pre-orders. If you just order enough from a bunch of different things, it actually doesn't feel like you're ever waiting because you're always getting something. And like I said already, since the bet, I really haven't bought anything. I've had pre-orders, and yet week after week, packages continue to arrive. I've got 2 here, that we can examine for Action Figure Spotlight later on. But it
Yeah.
just doesn't end. To the chat, Scott saying he likes to pick and choose from what he's buying. Silver Knight Kyle says damaged packages would bother him. Scott's also saying he collects several lines that don't come with weapons, or the weapons are brittle, so he would be fine without those. Danny's chiming in, most of his stuff stays packages, so bad package would bother him. I understand that. Scott always would hate to have to pay extra. I understand that.
Yeah.
Same with Severus Snape. Paying twice the value would annoy him. Let's get on to the last one, and I think you kind of alluded to it when we got to the icebreaker, but what would bother you more, Jay? Only being able to buy the same IP, Star Wars Turtles or Transformers or Joe, or only being able to buy new IP that comes out?
Well, I don't want to contradict what I said earlier, but I mean, I really couldn't live without Star Wars or Masters of the Universe or GI Joe.
Well, you would still have that at some point. You know, you would buy it, but then you would have to buy something new after you bought the Star Wars stuff. You know, like imagine in this scenario, I guess, that you don't have the Kenner vintage stuff. So that would be it. That gets released for Star Wars. Nothing else. Only vintage Masters. Only vintage Transformers. So
well, I think
you would have to only buy new stuff. Like you couldn't buy Earthrise or you couldn't buy Black Series.
Yeah. I think if all of those IPs were done creating 100%, which you can never say 100%, but if they were done, you would have a back catalog of stuff. I don't know. On the other hand, I really like giving new lines a chance when we ever get them. You know, we rarely get new stuff. We get different
Cactus
forms
Jamie,
of
Cactus Jamie's chiming in right.
Exactly.
That new IP. Is there?
I would say, you know, Mythic Legions. You're such a big fan of that. That's one line that comes to mind right away. That's a brand new thing.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't know. I'm just gonna throw it at only collecting new IPs. There you go. I don't know.
That would bother you more, or that's what you'd prefer to do?
That would bother me more, I would say. I don't know, man. I really don't know on this one. I'm kind of torn.
I think only having to buy the same IPs would bother me more. I'm okay with buying new stuff. I don't have to buy everything that comes out, but if I get one iteration of all the other stuff, I'm fine with that. I mean, we'll talk about superpowers coming up. I don't need any other superhero figures from DC other than those. I'm good. I have them.
Yeah,
but I don't need them.
The DC, the McFarlane Multiverse line, I recently traded in all those too because I'm
wow.
Like, you know, I had 6 of them, including the Red Hood, which is a personal favorite. I got rid of them. I'm just like, I don't need these. There's just enough that they're odd, you know, on my shelf. They don't really fit with anything. I'm just like, you know what? And I looked at the superpowers and I'm like, I'm really surprised that they haven't decided to do a superpowers kind of style with the retro card back, you know, that everyone else is doing, and kind of bring those out again. I knew they did the big 12-inch ones and all that, but I mean, like, continue with maybe some new characters like Nightwing and, you know, Red Hood and stuff they never did before. That would be neat.
It's funny you say that because, of course, these late nights working and waiting for exports and whatnot, I've been going down the eBay rabbit hole of custom figures. And one thing I've been really looking at are custom superpowers figures. So figures that are done in the superpower scale. And there's some Robin ones, some Nightwing ones, some variant Jokers, Bizarro, Batgirl. And they're pretty cool. And they're like $50, $60 sometimes. I'm like, okay, do I want this, which is, you know, a style of a figure that I really like, or do I want to go spend it on like 3 McFarlane figures or 1 Super 7 figure or one of a kind? Is kind of cool when you think of it that way.
I guess for me, and Scott's booing me,
What's up, Cindy?
I think if you're a big DC fan, the figures make sense. For me personally, why they differ from Marvel Legends is because 90% of Marvel Legends, I understand where they're from, even if it's stuff that I don't read, like, you know.
Sure, okay.
But the DC Multiverse stuff, I put one of them in my top 10 for 2001, and that was the Thomas Wayne figure. And I got crucified because I called him Bruce Wayne. This was an alternate, and it doesn't say anything on the package. It's an alternate universe where Thomas Wayne lives and Bruce dies. So Thomas becomes Batman. That's really cool. But there's so many I don't want to say weird, but there's so many of these
Elsewhere variant multiverse.
multiverse stories, and it's just like a lot of the times I'll look at a Batman figure or a Joker figure, I don't know where it's from. Um, so I don't have the investment like I do with Marvel, where when I see
That's fair.
Wolverine, 9 times out of 10, I know, okay, that's the '70s Wolverine. There's the orange suit, that's '80s, and so on.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when it comes to Batman and specifically DC stuff, I really like the animated series figures, and
Yeah.
McFarlane has done a couple of them, but
Mhm.
there's still a bunch out there from DC Direct or DC Collectibles that are just as good as anything else. So it's really hard for me to buy that new iteration of the thing that's already out there for a reasonable price that I already have some of. Right? You can't really replace something that's good in such a short amount of time because it really feels like you're throwing money away. The Clayface figure that they announced for McFarlane's DC stuff looks really cool. It looks a lot like the Rancor that didn't get funded from HasLab. Is a big
Oh,
plastic
please
piece
don't
of mud.
don't
You want
bring
to
it
talk about the
anything.
Rancor?
I
Want
don't
to
want
talk
to
about
talk about
Rancor?
anything to do with that show. No,
You
I
want to talk about?
don't.
I haven't watched this week's chapter of the Book of Boba Fett. I'm
Neither have
excited to see.
I.
I'm excited to see how muddy the train wreck continues to go. I am now gone from. I originally said I was only going to watch 3 episodes of it because that's kind of my threshold for most series. But now it's not even bad. If it was bad, it would be okay to watch and get something out of it. It's so mediocre. It's just like being stuck in the Sarlacc pit. And I'm waiting for my hand to stick out in the sand
Listen,
and fill that gap in my head because as a Star Wars fan, I needed to see that.
everything is starting to unravel, and I'm reading interviews with Tamara Morrison and video interviews of stuff that he's saying. And he's not slamming the show or anything like that, but it's very clear to me that Favreau, was kind of phoned in for him, and Robert Rodriguez is at the helm now, and that speaks volumes. And hey, that's just my opinion. I think the show it's so poor,
Oh, it's
and
the
I'm
best, worst show I've ever seen. I can't believe
yeah,
it's
it's
worse
so
than the
bad.
Star Wars holiday special. I said it.
I
Because the holiday special,
yeah, yeah.
you can appreciate what they're trying to do. And again, it's so bad it's good. Right? Like
So
you can enjoy it on a whole different level.
yeah, I'm gonna retro universe. So Scott's saying just move on. So for me, it's hard, and I'm sure it's hard for Rob too, because Star Wars is so special. Um, and they're capable of doing great stuff. We saw The Mandalorian, which wasn't perfect, but I still think that show was fantastic overall. And then
Mhm.
you get this, and it's just like, honestly, this is my biggest gripe, and then we'll move on. You could have put any person in Boba Fett's shoes, and the show would have been better. Why it had to be Boba Fett? It didn't have to be Boba Fett. Or how about making a new character who just, wants to be a crime lord?
I
I still don't
want
know why he wants to be a crime lord. After 3 episodes, he hasn't said why he wants to be a crime lord. It's just, he just wants to be a crime lord. It's the worst poorly written thing I've ever seen in Star Wars. I would rather watch The Rise of Skywalker 3 times in a row than watch an episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Okay, there we go.
well, I can't wait to get your reactions to episode 4. I know you're going to watch it because we have to
I'm going
continue
to
to
watch it.
discuss this
Of
drama.
course.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm excited for your reactions. We can talk after and then discuss on next week's episode. We don't want to spoil it for everybody, but yeah, this is a train wreck. It is literally the worst thing I've seen tied to Star Wars, and that's saying a lot, folks. That's saying a lot. Let's get on to the main topic, I think, since we're halfway through the episode at this point, and that, of course, is toys that still hold up. This is a big one, and it came to me today, as these often do, as an epiphany moment, a light bulb moment, as I was scanning my Dolly collections on the shelf, saying, which of these toys could I still go and play with? Which of these ones are still good? Which of these ones don't have, which of these toys don't have any letdown features? And which is just nostalgia earning its spot on the shelf? What is a good toy? Which toys truly still hold up? Jay, did you have any gut reactions other than the Cape Crusaders behind you on display?
Yeah, of course, superpowers. I looked at it from a different point when I read the the preview of what we're talking about, how I took it was toys that hold up, like they're still cool and stuff, but I also took it as in toys that physically still stay with us. And that's one reason why any Real American Hero stuff is not here, despite it being pretty fairly easy to repair a GI Joe. They were not meant to withstand time. Their O-rings rot, dry rot. The early green plastic is basically, at this point, if you pick up a character like Zap or Steeler and you literally drop it this high onto a table, he will shatter. So it's like porcelain now. So I kind of looked at it
part
like,
of it, though. I think that's part of what I was getting at, because I look at
sure,
something like Transformers, and good luck finding a G1 Optimus Prime that's loose,
yeah,
that can stand,
yeah.
like literally stand up, that can hold himself up. He just can't. And so that's a poor toy to me.
Yeah. My good brother Nathan in the chat there. Yes, he is the one who was responsible for this beautiful Batmobile all the way from the great state of Texas. I got that last year from Nathan, so thanks, dude. So I'm gonna hold up an example of the very first thing, and I don't know why this popped in my mind. If you want to make me big on the screen,
I'll make you
I'm gonna
big,
hold
buddy.
this up. And this is a very simple action figure. This, of course, is the 1978 Stormtrooper from Kenner. But this is a perfect example of, in my mind, an action figure that holds up over time. This guy, or pretty much for the most part, anyone in the Star Wars line, except for someone who has a vinyl or cloth cape, these figures hold up. They can still be played with, and they're always intact. When was the time, think about this hard, Rob. Okay, you can make me small again. When was the time you ever saw a Kenner Star Wars figure with any limbs missing?
The only thing I've seen on Kenner Star Wars figures are the hands break sometimes, and the paint rubbing from excessive play.
The paint rubs off, absolutely. Yeah.
But never like an arm broken in half or a leg missing. Just sometimes like the thumb grips, like we would see on GI Joes or the Indiana Jones figures as well.
Or they're
That's
like
about it.
This Stormtrooper Blaster, which came with IG-88, it came with Boba Fett, it came with so many of the characters, is notoriously lost. And so the weapons themselves are often more expensive than the figures. Yeah, Jamie, he is very white. His gloves are rubbing off, but that's okay. So the Kenner Star Wars were the first thing I popped up. I was going to put up some stuff here, but I love the Batmobile so much that Kenner Superpowers was number 2. That's what popped into my head.
Well, let's take it all the way back to the top then. Original GI Joe 60s style and the 70s adventure line and all that. Do those figures, since they call them action figures or dolls, 12-inch dolls, still hold up for you? Are those still a good toy? Are they still durable and reasonable? And is there still play value there, some 50, 60 years later?
The original Joes, the dolls?
Yeah.
Yeah, I put them in the same category as Mego, the Mego World's Greatest Superhero line, Planet of the Apes, any of that good old stuff Mego did. And I would say no, unless it was preserved correctly. If you go to a flea market, if those still exist, or you go to a comic store and you find the bargain bin and there's any kind of action figure from that era, they're always dirty, disgusting, and they stink. That's just a fact, because most of these, they have
Get your damn dirty paws off me.
Yeah, like let's take Batman and Robin from the World's Greatest Superhero line. Or any of the fantastic Mego Star Trek toys.
You see,
they're always dirty.
I see. I agree and disagree. I agree that Mego doesn't hold up, because I feel like those are like giant oven mitts that have been sewn into figures, and some of them, like Batman, looks like he has oven mitts on there.
Plus the construction of those, they're all full of elastics, right? So most of them, again, they're dry rotting, right?
Yeah, but I find a lot of the GI Joe stuff, because it's hard plastic. In some cases, some of the other figures, like a lot of the Western figures, actually have wood sculpt in them, so they're super durable and they do stand the test of time. Yeah, if you're picking them from a bottle or a bottom of a tote that's been in somebody's musty basement, there's probably going to be some humidity damage. There's probably going to be some mold on that. But I think the figures for play value, if it was, like you said, preserved, still works. It still sits on a shelf. It still holds up today. You could give, a 1964 GI Joe doll to a kid for Christmas with a bunch of changing outfits and a rifle, and they would have fun with it.
You would do that. You would do that. And I also took it, the description of the episode another way, which was, I also took it as what was the best versions of those characters.
Yeah,
And
that's part of it too.
without a doubt, this is not even a debate. That is the best Batmobile, the best Batman, and the best Robin figure that they've ever made. Even to this day, the DC Multiverse stuff's great, sure. Well, whatever. It doesn't even hold a candle. And this car is, the shining star. It's just absolutely gorgeous.
Country Boy 9, John is just tuning in.
What's up, John?
The first half hour of the show. He wants to know if we mind repeating everything. Of course not. Just hit that little rewind button on there and drag it back to the beginning, and we'll see you at the end. Thanks for watching, my friend. Thanks for coming on time. We appreciate your tardiness. Let's go down the line, and we've already talked original Joe, Mego, Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. Do these stand the test of time? You've already kind of commented on the drop test.
I don't think so. And there's a lot of yellowing issues. Characters like Snowjob, characters like the original Storm Shadow. Terrible yelling. You can fix this stuff just like you can fix the O-ring. Yes, you can. Of course you can. But if you're just talking about, a toy that's just, been sitting out for a while, Joe's not so much. Transformers, definitely not.
Yeah, Transformers, I don't think it stands up anymore as a great toy or a great toy line, which is why so many Transformers collectors that I know and that I've spoken with really do appreciate the more current and modern offerings, because it's not as brittle, it's not as flaky, it's more representative of the figures and the characters that they know. Sure, there's the nostalgia tied to it, but I mean, that scale, those materials, the evolution of Transformers as a whole is just, it doesn't add up the way that we know that toys should have. There's not a cohesiveness and a durability to it. Again, if you take care of Joe's, I think the concept is awesome. I think the scale is awesome. The accessories truly make that line amazing in combination with the vehicles. And you only really need one or two play sets from all the offerings that a Real American Hero has to have an awesome time for kids. It's just, they will shatter. they do have a time span on them, and
they will rot
in it. Yeah.
At some point, like He-Man figures, the O-ring or the band and He-Man figures they'll dry rot. That's just the physicality of it, the science behind it, right? So that's kind of when I took into consideration. It doesn't mean obviously Joe's are one of my, if not my favorite thing to collect, but I don't think they hold up,
Well, you mentioned
so much.
Universe there and He-Man. Those figures, the original vintage, does it work for you still? Is it a toy that still holds up, even if you compare it to maybe something like Origins?
It doesn't. One of my favorite characters from the first wave, the first two waves, is Zodak. I love that character, and mine suffers from. You would be able to tell me what it's called when their legs turn in, right? So the band,
syndrome. It's
the T band or whatever it's called is obviously going. And I will admit, I've never taken apart a He-Man figure, so I'm sure you can. Obviously, you can do it, but mine doesn't really stand anymore, and it's a real shame to see an action figure kind of dissolve like that. And let's just say there was no internet, you didn't know how to do that, you couldn't figure it out. You were bad at engineering like me. It's hard to watch them fade away like that.
Yeah, it's tough. I think those characters and that design and sculpt is pretty timeless. I think it works, but you can't bash them around infinitely without having damage, right? And it's interesting because we're going through all our favorite lines here. We can talk about Mask, we can talk about Cops, Sectars, Visionaries,
Mask,
and find lots of flaws.
Let me give an honorable mention to Mask and say, everyone out there who has anything Mask, take care of it. Oh my God. Mask is one of the worst to age, especially stuff like Rhino and Thunderhawk with the real rubber tires. They dry rot and split if you look at them the wrong way. So please, we need to take care of these, because the examples are getting few and far between of mint Mask stuff.
there's nothing seemingly that we grew up with that kind of still holds up today, save maybe superpowers. And even that,
I say
if you
Star Wars does. Star Wars does.
okay, Star Wars and superpowers.
Yeah. Yeah.
The superpower figures, if you play with the features, the play features too much, you'll notice some separation and stuff. That's the biggest downfall of them, I think. I don't see a ton of paint rubbing from the superpower stuff, except for maybe Batman symbol on his chest, sometimes Superman symbol, but typically those paint apps are pretty solid on those.
Yeah,
If
it's not like, yeah, I would say, your biggest obstacle besides losing the accessories, which I don't really think is what we're talking about. I would say the capes would be another issue. I've seen some pretty filthy capes.
frayed
And
for sure.
frayed capes. I've seen a really great Dark Side not too long ago, and I had to pass on it because his cape was just trash. And as you know, Dark Side without his cape is not Dark Side, so I had to pass on that one.
You definitely need it. People are chiming in that stuff like Hot Wheels lasts forever. Very true, Cactus Jamie. Excalibur is talking about Lego and Space Lego in particular. Lego always works. It's part of the same building system, whether you have kits from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And now Lego is Lego. My kids are just getting into Lego right now, so it's fun to go through all the toy chapters. Those are some of the toys from the past year. What about toys nowadays? Classics, Origins, Revelation figures. We've talked about McFarlane figures, War for Cybertron, Classified, Black Series Vintage Collection, Mythic Legions. Do any of this stuff, will it stand the test of time in the future, looking back 40 years? Or like Neca Turtles? Anything from Neca, will it stand up?
It doesn't stand up now.
Yeah.
I took my Marty McFly out of the package and he broke. I'm like,
yeah,
I didn't even do anything.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I love the IPs and the art design behind NECA. I don't like the engineering and I don't like the plastics they use. And again, Scott will disagree with me, but I find the DC Multiverse shares the same.
They are now.
They're more brittler plastic, and you can feel it. Any of the McFarlane stuff, I think, is a little more fragile. I don't think so. I think some lines will, some lines won't. Origins, I think, will be totally fine because you've taken the elastic right out of them. Black Series, Marvel Legends, any of the Hasbro stuff will be fine because those plastics
finding,
very
though,
sturdy
nowadays that even with stuff like Origins, and specifically, I read an article about the DC McFarlane Multiverse stuff, that the engineering and quality just isn't there. It is about sheer quantity of figures, getting them out the door as fast as they can instead of putting the QA into them to making sure they last. Let's get the figure on the shelf so people can buy it. And of course, we get the NECA syndrome. You open it, it falls apart. You try to manipulate it, it breaks over and over and over again. So I don't know that anything nowadays will hold up in 40 years' time.
I think the artistry behind the DC stuff is definitely there. The figures look great.
Right, but that's fine if you leave it in a package or you want a statue.
Sure. I think they were designed to be taken out of the shelf and put in your pose that you want to put Batman in, and then that's it. You leave them on the shelf, and that's it, like a statue. Yeah, I can't stop looking at the NECA Turtles, man, because those are...
I have a feeling what I have here are NECA Turtles in these boxes. I don't know what's in them, but they're ridiculously sized boxes, which means there's ridiculous figures in there that have oversized packaging. So we'll see what...
Mike, thank you. Yes, that is in my top 5 toy vehicles of all time. It's almost got to be number 1, I'd say. I love it.
The Justice Jogger just beat it out.
Yeah, I've never owned it until last year, so it's my first time I've ever owned it.
It's cool. You play with the play features, the claw at the back, and the battering ram at the front.
No, I don't really do. I don't do
the lights. Anymore. No.
The box art's hilarious, where they're just hitting Joker. It's like,
did you get the box for it?
No. But when we were shooting with it, we had the box, right? When we shot with it for season 1.
Yeah.
I think we had the box. Yeah. Yep. That box art is gorgeous. And I love the superpower box art. But it's funny. It's like Batman's so careful, it doesn't kill anybody. But he's like literally crushing Joker's bottom half with the bumper.
Yeah, just break him from the hips down. No big deal.
It's awesome.
Let me ask you this, Jay. If we agree that none of the toys that we grew up with are standing the test of time, save superpowers apparently and original Star Wars, and none of the toys that we're collecting now seemingly will hold up, maybe Origins. What the hell are we doing? You know, is this just a short window of toys that we get to play with and enjoy with, and just inevitably have to accept that this won't be on, like this won't last forever, and we're just constantly
Well,
chasing that dragon?
that's a deeper conversation.
Well, this is what we're here for, deep conversations.
I don't see a lot of, and I don't have kids myself, but from what I observe, I don't see kids gravitating towards toys like this anymore. You still see the odd pick of, the father, like it's almost funny, they're almost like forcing their kid. When the Origins Grayskull came out last year,
Yeah.
2 years ago, or whenever it came out,
Yeah.
every dad was like, "Oh, my kids, starting them off right, putting them in front of Grayskull." And some of the kids look happy, but some of the kids are like, "Okay, why are these half-naked barbarian guys?" Like, I don't get it. It's like the cartoon is not on TV anymore. It's not the same time, and you're never, ever going to recreate that same time. So I don't know if toys today are going to stick. I don't know if there's going to be collectors like us 50 years from now. If there is, I think my prediction is it'd be a very small niche.
I think one of the interviews topics that we have for season 2 is the future of action figures, and I think Justice Curry or Motu Joe were talking about going to a convention, and a toy convention, general toy convention, and there was like 3 tables in the corner of guys that had like model trains, and one of them went to talk to them and said, 10 years ago, this whole room was full of model train guys, and now we're just here in the corner.
Do you know what? That's crazy. I used to a little bit be a train guy. That's funny. I haven't thought about those probably in 20 years. So yeah, when I was growing up, it was so many people were into the model trains, and it was guys our age now were into the model trains and stuff like that. And I don't know many people. Actually, I don't know anybody.
Aged out. I don't even know where you would go to get a model train right now.
That's a good point, man. I mean,
so
this is a
are we on
different.
that precipice?
This is a little different because you have IPs that are spanning generations, right?
And still putting out content. I can't wait for the Book of Boba Fett Black Series figures. I can't wait for those. I need to have them.
It's like you want me. You know what? And I gotta say, we're not going to keep going on Boba Fett, but anyone who tuned in on my live stream last Friday night with our good buddy Jordan, we went almost 3.5 hours.
I noticed,
and it was just,
and the 3.5 hours you guys went were more entertaining than the 3.5 hours that the series has been so far.
It was like a therapy session for both of us. But him being a professional screenwriter,
Old Testament
being a teacher of film and all that stuff, like he really broke it down as to technically why it doesn't work, and then of course we got into the Star Wars lore why it doesn't work. So anyway, back to the topic on hand. I hope toys continue. I hope they last. I hope, I look at the Marvel Legend figures I have, in 20 years from now, people are like, oh, I wish I had that awesome Walgreens Silver Surfer that came out in 2017, but I don't know if that's the case, man. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum to see where we might be. Like, I think the biggest difference between like model trains and toys are like there's no IP for model trains.
Model trains.
You get into it for the engineering and probably something that your dad passed down to you, and you kind of like stuck with it.
I remember such a big thing from that. I'm remembering from my own personal experiences was that a lot of the fun was had creating towns.
And the trains that would go through, or it would go through a wall together, in a basement.
But I mean, like gluing together the general store and then putting the little people in and recreating like a little town square and stuff like that. Like
it's like Christmas villages nowadays. You buy all the different houses with the lights and you make your scenery. They do it for Halloween now.
Cactus Jamie, you bring up a good point. I see Rob and I have talked about this a lot. Games like Fortnite is a perfect example, where Fortnite is this generation's toys, right? So it's $29.99 for a new skin, which is essentially a new character that they get to play with in the game. That's their avatar. That's who they want to be. And now you have licensed stuff like we've seen Thanos, Boba Fett, Snake Eyes, all this stuff in Fortnite now. So this is really becoming toys. They're digital avatars.
It's interesting because my son just got into playing Nintendo Switch. He's comfortable using a controller. Uh, he picked it up like that once he started to invest in it. He's 7, but when the screen time, you got to cap him off. You can't play screens forever. He goes right to toys right afterwards. And sometimes you'll start the day off playing with toys and action figures first, and combine figures with Lego and dolls and make a fort and stuff, and then do screen time. So and I don't know if it's just my influence because I have so many toys around, he kind of does what he wants, but he really likes the different kinds of play that come from figures versus, on the rail video game kind of experiences.
Well, that's great. And I think that you're definitely teaching him well. I feel sorry for kids in that I don't see any new IPs. I mean, I'm sure they're obviously out there. There's nothing I'm aware of. Everything is like old stuff just being remade again.
I'll
And
be honest, it's not even me
yeah.
teaching him though. Like he gets sucked into, like, he played a little bit when he was younger. He's playing a lot more with toys now, but it's my daughter, who's only 4, who loves to role play. Whether it's she's a character and I'm a character without toys, or we play through characters, or sometimes that boundary blurs and we put the characters down and we just become the things we were playing with. Like, she's into it from the
Yeah.
second she gets up, and she transfers that to him. Even when they're outside in the backyard playing in the snow and stuff, they're playing and role playing, and it's really cool to see. So it gives me hope, right, that the toy
Yeah.
and the playtime doesn't end for just game time.
It was such a different time. It was a time where if in the 80s, if you missed the show, you missed the show. You'd have to wait till tomorrow. And
Yeah.
that's why, the very few stations that would play Robotech, and Robotech was a serial, right? It was a continuation from one episode to the next. And if you missed a week, you were lost. So going back to even stuff just like G.I. Joe and He-Man, it's like, if you missed it, you missed it. Oh, well, you pick up your figures and you make your own adventures. But now it's just, you go
But
on
now,
Netflix,
even with
you
He-Man,
go on
right? Like, yeah, but the Netflix He-Man show that's designed and aimed for kids, it's like, okay, boom, here's 10 episodes or whatever. It's like, okay, if you into it, or you have your dad like me pushing to watch it or something like that, that's one thing. But like The Mandalorian, it became water cooler talk week after week after week. And that's just one episode a week, let alone one a day, like Monday through Friday, like it was for G.I. Joe and He-Man, right? So when it's not constantly being talked about, it's hard to constantly be
because
into it,
because
and
there's
then you don't
no
want to
there's
buy
no
the
urgency.
figures.
Because
Yeah.
there's no urgency, right? So back then it was like, if you didn't see G.I. Joe at 4:30, you weren't going to get a chance to see it again until tomorrow at 4:30. It's like, it didn't wait for you. If you missed it, you missed it. And there's something very special about that period of time where it made it so exciting and special, and you looked forward to it because it wasn't in your control, it wasn't in your hands, and you didn't just have it at your fingertips at any old time you want. I think that a lot of kids, they don't know that, so it's just, that's normal to them, and it's almost taken advantage of.
It's really strange because I think there's very few shows from our childhood that aren't accessible anymore. If they're not on YouTube, they've been pushed on DVD, or they are on a streaming platform. And of course, one of the other projects that I'm working on that I've announced is the documentary on Mr. Dress Up. And I'm going through the episode list, and there was 4,000 episodes. And I'm going through archives, and the archives that I'm looking at show the broadcast air dates and when reruns were. And for the first 20 years,
Oh yeah, reruns.
so many, there weren't reruns. They didn't even think about reruns.
Yeah.
And so these episodes played once.
Heck, Celebrus saying you had to wait because the summer would do reruns, and yeah.
But just think
That's
about
crazy.
that, right?
That's
Like
crazy
the first
if you missed
15
it,
years
yeah.
of a show. I mean, this is a morning
Yeah.
kid show, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But the first 15 years of a show hardly had any syndication whatsoever. It played once, and that's it. That's wild to think about. Imagine there was 15 years of G.I. Joe that only had one episode that was shown once.
I think it was the perfect marriage of television and toys, because I remember as a kid, half an hour went by like that. It went by so fast.
Yeah.
And it was like you wanted more. Well, how do you get more? Well, you create it in your mind,
Yeah,
and you
that's how you
have the
extend it.
avatars, which are the toys, and you just continue your adventures. And that doesn't exist today, and it's really sucks. It's really sad.
It does in my playtime, and I know if you had kids or littles around you, Jay, you would find a way to get back into it. It took me a while to switch my brain and to get back into playtime when you don't do it for 20 years. But when you get comfortable
Yeah,
storytelling, yeah. Anyways, action figure spotlight. Let's move on.
yeah.
Do you want to go first? Do you have one? Do you have two? What do you got?
I have one that's part of a very large reveal that will be
Oh,
revealed at the end of the month. And as soon
oh,
as I show
wow.
you part of this, you'll know. Please don't say it.
Okay, I'm
Um,
gonna make you big.
but it's a holy grail that I've been chasing for a while now. A while now.
Uh
Rob
oh.
knows I don't stop talking about this particular piece.
Oh my
Um,
god. Do I have to do
I,
a shot or something like that? Is this one of those
no,
things?
no, no, no. I don't have what you're thinking of, but this is part of the same series. And I don't know. I can't not say it without wrecking things. But anyway, this is a
Okay,
figure
well,
that I
this
got.
is a tease, folks.
This is my buddy Scott sent me a message about a particular piece that I've been hunting for forever. That is like China, and it's so fragile and it's so rare and it's sold so little. There are very few pieces in existence now, but he's like, here you go, man. Here's an auction. This guy is selling this piece. Anyway, so I bought that lot, and in that lot, I got a figure that I've been looking for a long time. This is the 1979 Buck Rogers Mego 3.75 Tweaky. I'm such a big Buck Rogers fan, and I love these figures so much. And this figure has eluded me. It was one I had when I was a kid, and I can't even tell you what happened to it. No, Ryan, not Dick Tracy. Golly. Tweaky is funny, Rob. So he is like engineered like a Joe, except reverse. I don't know the genius who designed this figure, but as you can see, the back of Tweaky has no screw. Where's the screw? Well, if you want to change out the O-ring at Tweaky, you have to drill through Dr. Theopolis here, which is a sticker, and you ruin that. So luckily, when I got this Tweaky in the mail from a seller on Facebook, he is nice and tight, and he's going to last for a long time. It's rare to have the sticker there. I don't know if it translates very well. But that is Tweaky, and Tweaky is part of a much bigger reveal that will
Mattel,
be
right?
coming very soon. Migo.
Migo? Buck Rogers, right.
Yeah.
Right. How
So that's all
right.
I'll say about that. Let's see what you got. You got a couple packages to choose
Yeah, I got
from.
one or two, so pick one or two and I'll pick it. I don't know really what's in them.
Let's go with
One or
lucky
two.
number one.
Okay. Lucky number one. Let's see what's going on here.
I don't know why it's lucky. Yeah, it's number one, whatever.
Here we are here.
Oh.
It's from Entertainment Earth, a place that I actually don't order from that often. I'm not sure why I did this time around. And given that I don't order from them often, you would think that I would remember what I actually order from them, but I don't. So we will see. Oh my goodness.
Hex Caliber, you're exactly right. It's like the Ninja Force stuff. Whereas if they broke, that was it.
I guess there's a magazine I get to have in here.
Oh, it's
25
everyone's
years.
favorite Karate Kid. It's Johnny. Oh, thank you.
Johnny. Oh, okay. Now, all right. So this is a Super 7
Super
Turtle.
7. Okay. Ultimates.
It's Ultimate's Mutagen Man. Now I know what it is. But this isn't just...
I don't know who that is.
So look at that fluorescent packaging. That looks like Ninja Force colors.
It does, yeah.
This is a Entertainment Earth exclusive edition, which I think ironically went out for exclusivity on Big Bad Toy Store as well later. But this is the glow in the dark version of Mutagen Man. So
Oh, that guy. Okay.
he looks...
Yeah.
You can see the greenness on his shell there.
Yeah.
And that's the part that glows. Obviously, his limbs glow as well. I don't
Pretty
think.
cool.
Yeah, I have the regular one, but way behind me. I'm not gonna go get it for comparison because I'll knock stuff over. But
So you liked Mutagen Man so much, you wanted 2 versions of him.
no, actually, I don't. I don't like Mutagen Man at all. And look, this glows in the dark here in the back too. I don't like Mutagen Man really at all, Jay. But because I needed to have everything in this line to be a real Dolly collector fan, I had to have the glow in the dark
You're
one.
addicted.
I had to do it.
You need help. You need help, my friend.
LFG, Jay. LFG.
I don't even like Mutagen Man, but I have both of them.
Well, this is the second glow-in-the-dark version they've released of a character. They also have Baxter Stockman, which I do like quite a bit. And because my mission is now to open as many figures as possible, I'm tussling the idea in my head. Do I open the glow-in-the-dark ones or the regular ones? What do you think?
I think you should open the regular ones and save the exclusives. And I'm going to throw, just before, I know we're running out of time here, I'm going to throw my challenge for 2022 to you, my friend.
Uh-oh. Okay, let's hear it.
It is similar to the bet we had before.
Yep.
But this one's a little more forgiving. I challenge existing pre-orders do not count. So if you have existing pre-orders that
give me 10 minutes then, and then
I challenge you to only purchase 1 toy a month. One toy
so
you can pick, doesn't matter what is, modern, vintage, whatever you want, vehicle, place it, doesn't matter. You get 1 thing a month, and once you've made that purchase, and it can't carry over. So if you don't do anything for January, you don't get 2 in February. You can't carry them over.
What about accessories?
1 per month.
Are accessories
anything to do with toys? If it's something you're purchasing that's a toy, so if you're trying to complete a Joe.
For me, though, like if I have to buy something for Action Figure Adventure Season 2 because we need a cutaway.
No. Nothing to do for work. I'm talking about for our personal collections, because all that stuff you sell back anyway. None of it gets capped, right? So just stuff for yourself. So if you want to complete Falcon, you need a shotgun, okay? You get that shotgun off eBay. That's your 1 thing for that month. Do you accept the challenge?
What are the stakes?
The stakes, I would say, if you break it, then you have to buy the other person a figure for that month. So the easiest way not to do that. So this can get very expensive. I would say under $30. Keep it under $30.
So if you break it, I get to pick a figure that's $30.
So if I break it, let's say I buy 2 things or 3 things or whatever. You're like, okay, well, you broke it. So I want to get whatever. I don't have to go out and find the thing. We'll make it relatively easy, but it's just like, I have to buy you a figure kind of next time we're out or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I accept your challenge, Jay. I accept your challenge. As long as the work thing is outside of it, because clearly I'm going to have to buy some stuff for the show. Then yes, for my personal Dolly collection, I will only add 12 new toys. New pre-orders don't count going forward. January still open then, or does it start in February?
January. Let's start it in February. So get all your spending out now. Just highlight Kyle there for a sec. He's debating on opening his Andy Kaufman figure. Always open an Andy Kaufman figure, dude. I would do it.
Sure.
Yeah, let's start it in February. So because January is half over now, and we'll see. We'll check in and see where we are, and I think it'll be fun because it doesn't cut us off completely, right?
What about trades? Can I trade stuff that I have towards stuff? This is not a new purchase.
I would say yes, you can trade. Absolutely.
Okay. Yep. All right. Well, that'll do it for another episode of the Jay and Rob Toy Show, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We told you we'd keep it going, and in the coming weeks, we'll be getting closer to those magical auction episodes where we talk about the figures that are up on the block, and you too can own a piece of Action Figure Adventure Season 2. Probably a couple weeks away still. We're still working on the photography side of that and the filming side of it. Jay, where can people find you if they want to know more and check out other videos that you're doing?
YouTube. YouTube is where you can get a hold of me. I'm trying different things with my videos, so the videos are coming out a little more sparse. So it's about 1 a week now, and I'm just trying a bunch of different things. It's a lot of fun.
Well, check out Jay's YouTube channel if you want to see video experimentation and fun things. I recently checked out your Snake Eyes comparison video. funny from the beginning to the end, as if there was a challenge in that discussion. You can find me on Twitter at Rob McZob, and of course on Instagram at the Jane Rob Toy Show, at Action Figure Adventure, and at Rob McCallum Films. Jay, we try to end every episode with the same kind of catchphrase that we've stolen blatantly and plagiarized from other places. For the love of toys and the warmth of scarves, take care of yourselves
and each other. Beat
Does playtime, Jay?
It's always the best time that we have during the times.
It's always the time of times that we remember with the biggest smiles. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.